2024 is finally here. What better way to start the year than to talk about the amazing class of 2023 players? This is part 2 of the freshman breakdown video. Check out part 1 if you haven't seen it yet. This class has been full of great players. There's a lot of people you look at, and you are like, wow, they are really good for a freshman. But then there's other players who look extremely good, even compared to upperclassmen. I think there's 8 players who have separated themselves in terms of their performance so far. These players are Addy Brown, Madison Booker, Malaysia Fulwiley, Chloe Kitts, Taliah Scott, Mikaylah Williams, Juju Watkins, and Hidalgo. Addy Brown was the 31st recruit in the class, and so far, she has played much better than that. I don't know if she modeled her game after Alyssa Thomas, but I would be very surprised if she didn't. Addy is a point forward, which is becoming more and more common. Her play style is one the WNBA will salivate over. She's averaging 15 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists. She is shooting 50% from the field. She is shooting 36% from 3, which is very good for a post player. She's only a freshman and is already one of the biggest offensive threats in the Big 12. Her first conference game was against Oklahoma State, and she completely destroyed them. She had 20 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, and shot 7 for 12 from the field. She was also 4 for 7 from 3. The only negative of her performance was the 5 turnovers. She picked up right where she left off versus Kansas. She had 14 points, 13 rebounds, and 4 assists. She was less efficient from the field this time as she was 5 for 11, but she cut her turnovers down to only 2. So far, Addy has played against one ranked team, which was Iowa. She had a double-double with 14 points and 12 rebounds. She also had 5 assists and 2 steals. Her efficiency wasn't the greatest that game, but it's clear she has the potential to be a star. Addy is a double-double machine who has the ability to pass. If she gets better defensively, who knows what can happen. I don't know how good Iowa State will be this year, but if they develop Addy with the rest of their freshmen, they are going to be a serious problem in the later years. It's not an exaggeration to say Audi Crooks and Addy Brown can become one of the best duos in college basketball. Something you wonder about with freshmen when they put up big numbers is if they can do it against better competition. For Madison Booker, it's the opposite. When the competition gets better, her scoring practically doubles. Madison Booker cooked UConn and was a huge part in why they beat them. Madison dropping 20 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists definitely was not on UConn's scouting report. Rory Harmon unfortunately sustained a season-ending injury, who was the ultimate point guard. Thankfully for Texas, Madison Booker has shown she has the ability to find her teammates consistently. Booker's responsibilities have drastically increased and on a very short notice. It will be interesting to see if this speed runs her growth or if this causes her to struggle. Based off of the Baylor and Texas Tech game, the former seems to be the case. Right now, she's averaging 13 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. But in the 3 games without Rory, she has averaged 20 points, 5 rebounds, and a little under 8 assists. The only real negative is her 3-point shooting. Booker is shooting under 25%, which is surprising considering she was a good 3-point shooter in high school. My guess would be it's fatigue. She has to do so much that it probably affects her shot. It's unfortunate that the season will be clouded by what could have been, but Texas still has a promising future. Chloe Kitts enrolled into South Carolina early, and so far it has paid off. I know she's technically listed as a sophomore, but she just got done playing her 2nd semester of college basketball. But that's besides the point. A lot of people were down on Chloe being a starter at the beginning of the season, and her terrible game against Notre Dame didn't help. But after that, she has shown exactly why it was the right decision. This applies to the rest of South Carolina's players as well, but you can't really understand how good Chloe has been based on her stats. You just have to watch the games to see the impact. It's very easy to look at Chloe's numbers at 10 points and 7 rebounds a game and go, oh, that's not very good. But this is only with an average of 20 minutes per game and against one of the hardest non-conference schedules. Chloe's value lies in her versatility, mainly her ability to knock down mid-ranges and move without the basketball. This frees up a lot of space in the paint, in particular for Cardoso. This will never show up in the stat sheet, but it's important. Chloe is top 15 in defensive rating, which isn't surprising considering the team she plays for. Chloe's presence combined with Cardoso and Ashlyn Watkins makes it a nightmare for teams to score inside, which is why you see teams take 23s in a game. The biggest thing Chloe needs to improve on is her free throw shooting. It was an issue before her collegiate career and still is now. 67% is not going to cut it. It still surprises me that she struggles with this, considering she's one of the better mid-range shooters in the game. Teams are forced to choose between letting Cardoso eat or letting Chloe eat, and I think that will continue in SEC play. Malaysia Fulwiley is the perfect example of a true freshman. She does a lot of spectacular things, and some things that are not so spectacular. Malaysia Fulwiley in her freshman season has been like the Wheel of Fortune. Sometimes you get $1 million, sometimes you get something average, sometimes you go bankrupt. Some things she does will have you like, oh! Other times you're like, no! The reason for this is that she's learning how to balance when to do a crazy move and when to play normally. But there's one thing that's obvious. Her ceiling and potential is through the roof. People just have to be patient. When you look at Fulwiley's stats, they don't look the craziest. 12 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, and 2 steals. But then you add more context to it. This is with an average of only 20 minutes per game. This is against one of the hardest non-conference schedules. This is on a team with several great players who are also getting their shots. Fulwiley being in South Carolina will be better long term. She could have gone to a school like Clemson, where she could take 1,000,000 shots and have a mixtape every game. But Dawn Staley is the best coach in terms of balancing her special abilities, but also cutting down on mistakes. The crazy, behind-the-back layup Fulwiley did rightfully gets the most attention, but a very underrated play in the same game was when she blocked Prosper's shot and went on a 1-on-4 fast break. There was 4 players in the half court, and they didn't know how to stop her. And I think this is what Fulwiley's biggest strength has been so far. She's near unstoppable in fast break situations. You just have to hope she misses the layup because there's too many moves she can do in the air. Fulwiley has been an underrated defender. Her crazy moves are what make the highlight reels, but she's been impressive defensively. She is able to get steals and blocks, and when she's not doing those things, she's hustling. She's dealing with a similar problem as Brea Cunningham. Her over-aggressiveness can lead to fouls, but that's something that will improve over time. At the beginning of the season, I said there were 4 generational talents: Fulwiley, Juju, Hidalgo, and Mikaylah Williams. It's self-explanatory why Fulwiley is generational. But Mikaylah Williams is currently doing something that's never been done since Elena Delle Donne. Maybe it's a good thing no one has mentioned it, so she doesn't overthink her shot. But I really hope she finishes the season with this historic shooting feat. Mikaylah Williams is currently shooting a 40-50-90 split. Right now she's shooting 42% from 3, 52% from the field, and 93% from the free throw line. And she's averaging 17 points, so it's not like it's because she barely takes any shots. Her form literally never changes. Every single shot is the same. It wasn't against the greatest team, but not many players could score 42 points while shooting 75% from the field. And keep in mind, this was mostly jump shots. Not a post player getting a bunch of easy layups. And in terms of competition, there shouldn't be any question that Mikaylah can keep up. She was the leading scorer for LSU in the Colorado game. And in Virginia Tech, she put on a mid-range masterclass. If you have a kid and you want to teach them how to read a pick or roll, watch Mikaylah Williams' film against Virginia Tech. I do not foresee Mikaylah Williams having any issues in conference play, but we will find out very soon. Right now, Taliah Scott is basically just doing one thing, and that's score the basketball. But she happens to be really, really good at it, and Taliah Scott was one of the best scorers in high school, and she is one of the best scorers in college already. She's 8th in scoring at 23 points per game, which also ranks 1st in the SEC. And I don't see that changing. I expect Taliah's trajectory to be very similar to Tania Latson's. Latson led the ACC in scoring, but didn't do much else. In her sophomore year, she became more well-rounded, specifically at passing and defense. I think the same will happen with Taliah Scott. Obviously, it would be better if she did more than just score, but she's just a freshman. If she was great at other things along with her scoring, she would literally be a top 10 player. And who knows, maybe she will be one day. The Mikaylah Williams and Taliah Scott matchup will be very fun to watch, and potentially decide the SEC Freshman of the Year race. Right now, it's way too close to say one is handily above the other. Fulwiley also isn't out of the question if she makes the second half push, as great as a lot of freshmen have been. As of now, I think it's only a 2-person race for National Freshman of the Year, and those 2 people are Juju Watkins and Hannah Hidalgo. The reason for this is very simple. They aren't just playing like the best freshmen. They are playing like top 5, bare minimum top 10 players in the country. Every game they play, they dominate both ends of the floor, and the value they bring to their team can't be overstated. I'll start with Juju Watkins, and it does not matter what else Juju does this season. Her freshman season is already highly successful, just for this one reason alone. USC now has the #1 recruiting class in the country. There is a 0% chance this happens if Juju doesn't dominate. She completely changed life for USC. USC was a dead program after the Cheryl Miller era. Not anymore. Right now, she's second in scoring with 27 points per game. She also averages 7 rebounds and 4 assists. She is shooting 47% from the field and 47% from the three, which is very efficient. I saw everything I needed to see when she played against UCLA, who was a unanimous top 2 team at this point. She scored 27 points. Yes, she did take 24 shots, which isn't efficient by any standards. What was impressive was the fact she also had 11 rebounds, 2 steals, and 3 blocks in the game. And I think that's what separates Juju and Hidalgo from the other freshmen, even when they are off, which isn't often. They are able to control the game in other ways, because every player is going to have an off shooting night. It's unavoidable. But what separates good players from great is ones who can find other ways to impact the game. I've never seen a perception of a player change as quickly as Juju has. This is hard to believe now, but before the season many people were down on Juju. Many people called going to USC a mistake, saying she would be on a losing team and barely get any attention. There were a lot of people questioning her ability as a basketball player. Some even go as far to say her #1 recruit ranking was unearned. Juju humbled the trash talkers and doubters, and she will continue to do it the rest of her career. To put in perspective of how effective Hannah Hidalgo has been, in the NBA there are 3 players who recorded a 25, 5, 5, and 5 game this season. This is the National Basketball Association, the highest level of basketball on the planet. Hidalgo has already had 5 games like that, and there were many where she came extremely close. There's only one other player averaging 25 and 5 in a Power 5 conference besides Hannah Hidalgo, and that's Caitlin Clark. Hidalgo is currently the only player averaging at least 20 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds, and 5 steals in any conference. There's literally no comparison or precedent to what Hidalgo has done. At the beginning of the season, I compared her to Chris Paul and Allen Iverson. She definitely has similarities, but she really seems to be a one of one. Hannah Hidalgo defies logic. It doesn't make any sense for someone to play over 30 minutes a game at the intensity she plays. She never gets tired, even though she puts in a high amount of effort on both ends of the floor. When you look at the brutal amount of injuries Notre Dame has had this season, it's hard to imagine where they would be without Hidalgo. Hidalgo has put up crazy statistical numbers, but I would argue she's even better what the stats show. It doesn't account for the fact when she isn't stealing the ball, she's putting intense defensive pressure on the defense. She could easily have more assists, but there's a lot of blown layups or drop passes. This won't happen if Notre Dame gets more players back. The only true negative, and this applies to Juju as well, is the turnovers. 4 turnovers a game is very high. Considering they are freshmen and pretty much being asked to do everything, it's unavoidable. Let's look at Hannah Hidalgo's career worst game, which was against Tennessee. 13 points on only 30% shooting. That's extremely bad from a scoring perspective, but she also had 7 assists, 7 rebounds, and 4 steals in the same game, and only 3 turnovers. Her worst game is an amazing game for 90% of college players, and she's never been held under 20 points since. Her best game was against Syracuse. She had 32 points on 48% shooting and had 6 assists, 5 rebounds, and 5 steals. It was unfortunately overshadowed by a loss. She did everything and it still wasn't enough. I understand Notre Dame is hurt, but the players that are playing have to help out more. She's being asked to do way too much. She is asked to be the best scorer, defender, and passer every game. They are not going to be successful in the conference unless the other players step up more consistently. Forget ACC Freshman of the Year. Hidalgo should be a unanimous Defensive Player of the Year in that conference. Unless her performance completely falls off, which seems unlikely at this point, there's no reason she shouldn't be ACC Player of the Year. But we will see what happens. If I had to rank the freshmen how they are playing right now, huge emphasis on right now. Everyone I included this image I think will make the all-freshman team in their respective conference, because I think things will shift a little bit as some time moves on. The bottom tier you could add way more players if you wanted to. I can't possibly fit all of them. The next tier is key players. These people are technically role players but are doing a little bit more. They are players I think If you took off the team would be noticeably worse. That's the main difference between this tier and the role player tier. An argument can be made that Brea Cunningham and Ashlyn Shade could be in this tier as well. I think Audie Crooks and Fulwiley could potentially make an all-conference team. Their talent is very high. It's just about how fast it develops. When I say all-conference, I'm referring to Power 5 conferences, because there's definitely freshmen and mid-majors who will make it by default. Chloe Kitts, Addy Brown, and Madison Booker are definitely playing good enough to make the second team. First team would be harder, but it's not impossible. Taliah Scott and Mikaylah Williams are battling for SEC Freshman of the Year. I think both will make the SEC first team. At the beginning of the season, I predicted Juju Watkins and Hannah Hidalgo to be the best players out of this class, and right now that's the case. As talented as everyone is, I don't expect this to change. They have such a huge lead, and there's still a lot of room for improvement from both players. That's it for part 2 of the freshman analysis video. I hope everyone enjoyed. I plan on doing 2 more videos talking about this freshman class. One will be comparing them to the class of 2020, which will be later in the conference season. But from what I've seen, I think this recruiting class will surpass the 2020 class. The top players are very comparable to the best players in the 2020 class, and the depth of the 2023 class is significantly deeper. I'll also do another gigantic review like I did this week at the end of the season. In that video, I'll also talk about my preseason predictions of who the best freshmen will be, and go over anything I would change or keep. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.